first time my granddaughter asked me to stop giving her the neighbor's vitamins, I laughed. I wish I could go back and swallow that laugh whole. It was a Tuesday evening in late October, the kind of early dark fall night that makes the house feel smaller, closer. I was standing at the kitchen counter, twisting the cap off the amber bottle Mrs. Donnelly had handed me just days earlier. The pills inside rattled softly, a sound I'd come to associate with reassurance. Help, community. The things you cling to when you think you're doing right by the people you love. Grandma, Lily said from the table. Her voice was careful, like she was stepping onto thin ice. Can I not take those anymore? I turned, already smiling. Honey, they're just vitamins. Mrs. Donnelly said they helped her grandson with focus. You know how your mom worries about your grades. Lily didn't reach for the water glass. She didn't reach for anything. She just folded her hands together, knuckles white, eyes fixed on the wood grain of the table. They make my stomach hurt, she said. And I feel weird. Weird, that was the word. I should have stopped right there. I didn't. I told her we'd talk about it after dinner. I told her one more wouldn't hurt. I told her a lot of things that night that still echo in my head when the house is quiet. She took the pill. She didn't finish her chicken. That was the first crack. I'm 64 years old. I raised two children on my own after my husband died young, worked double shifts as a dental hygienist, learned how to stretch a dollar until it screamed. When my daughter, Emily, divorced and moved back in with Lily, I told myself this was just another season. Temporary, manageable. I prided myself on being the steady one, the safe one. Mrs. Donnelly lived next door for 7 years before that fall. Late 50s, neat gray bob, always in a cardigan no matter the weather. We de-exchanged casseroles, taken in each other's mail, watched each other's houses during vacations. She knew my routines, I knew hers, or I thought I did. The vitamins were her idea. You know, she said one morning over the low fence, sunlight catching on her glasses, my grandson had the same issues Lily's having, trouble concentrating, moody. The pediatrician suggested these natural supplements, changed everything. She'd held up the bottle like a solution. I hesitated, I remember that clearly. I said Emily should probably ask Lily's doctor. Mrs. Donnelly smiled in that soft, grandmotherly way that disarms you. Of course, I just thought I'd mention it. You're doing such a good job with her. Praise is a dangerous thing when you're tired. Emily was working late that week. Lily's teacher had called again. Notes about distraction, stomach aches, bathroom breaks. Emily cried at the kitchen table, head in her hands, whispering that she was failing her daughter. So when I handed Lily that first vitamin, it felt like action, like love. By Thursday, Lily stopped asking questions in class. By Friday, she came home pale and quiet, went straight to her room and slept for 3 hours. Growth spurt, I told myself. On Saturday morning, she threw up. That's when I called my friend Marlene. Marlene and I have known each other since nursing school, back when we both still thought we could change the world with good intentions and caffeine. She went on to work pediatric ICU for decades. She'd seen everything. If something was wrong, she'd know. I described the symptoms, the vitamins, the neighbor. There was a pause on the line, a long one. Can you read me the label? Marlene asked. I did. Another pause. This one felt heavier. Where did you say you got these? She asked. From next door, I said. She said they were for her grandson. Silence again. Then Marlene exhaled, sharp. Stop giving those to Lily, immediately. My stomach dropped. What? Why? Because that's not a children's supplement, she said. That's not even a vitamin. I felt cold spread through my arms. What do you mean? I mean that's a compounded supplement, adult dosage, and depending on where she got it, Marlene hesitated. It can interact with other things. It can cause nausea, confusion. In kids, it's dangerous. The room seemed to tilt. I leaned against the counter, staring at the bottle like it had grown teeth. She said it was natural, I whispered. Natural doesn't mean safe, Marlene said. Especially not unsupervised. Where did she get it, Ruth? I don't know, I said. She just gave it to me. Ruth, Marlene said gently, did you see a prescription label, a pharmacy name? No, then you need to stop, and you need to tell Emily, and I would keep that bottle. My heart was pounding so hard I could hear it in my ears. Keep it? Yes, she said, don't give it back. I hung up and stood there for a long time, the house quiet except for Lily's soft breathing down the hall. When Emily came home that night, I told her everything. She didn't yell, that somehow made it worse. She sat very still at the table, hands wrapped around her coffee mug, eyes glassy. When I finished, she nodded once and went to Lily's room. I heard them talking in hushed voices. I heard Lily cry. I went to bed with the bottle hidden in my nightstand and guilt curling in my chest like a living thing. The next morning, Mrs. Donnelly knocked on our door. She was smiling. Good morning, she chirped. I just wanted to check in. How's Lily doing? Emily stood behind me, arms crossed, jaw tight. She's fine, I said. My voice sounded strange to my own ears. We stopped the vitamins. The smile flickered, just for a second. Oh, Mrs. Donnelly said. Why that? We spoke to a medical professional, Emily said. Her tone was flat. They weren't appropriate. Mrs. Donnelly laughed lightly. Oh, doctors always so cautious. My grandson? Your grandson doesn't live with you, Emily said. The air shifted. Mrs. Donnelly blinked. Excuse me? You don't have a grandson, Emily said. You told us you did, but you don't. Mrs. Donnelly's eyes darted just briefly toward her own house, then back to us. I don't see why that matters, she said coolly. I was just trying to help. We won't be needing any more help, I said, her smile hardened. May I have the bottle back? No, Emily said. That's when Mrs. Donnelly's face changed, not angry, not loud, calculating. Well, she said slowly, that's disappointing. She turned and walked away. That should have been the end of it. It was. 2 days later, Lily had a panic attack at school. The nurse called Emily, who left work early. By the time they got home, Lily was shaking, eyes unfocused, saying she felt like bugs were crawling under her skin. I called Marlene again. She told us to bring Lily in. The hospital was all white light and antiseptic smells. Lily curled into Emily's side, fingers clenched in her sweater. The tests took hours. When the doctor finally came in, his expression was careful. Has Lily been exposed to any medications or supplements recently? He asked. Emily and I exchanged a look. Yes, I said. We stopped them 3 days ago. He nodded. That was good. Some substances can linger in the system, especially in children. What substances? Emily asked. The doctor hesitated. We're still running panels, but preliminary results show traces of something that shouldn't be there. My heart sank. What? I whispered. He looked at me. Where did the supplement come from? From our neighbor, I said. He frowned. I'd like to see the bottle. I went home to get it. As I stood in my bedroom, opening the nightstand, I noticed something I hadn't before. The label, it was printed clean, professional, but the ingredients list was off, vague, Latin names that didn't quite line up. At the bottom, in tiny letters, was a code. I didn't know it then, but that code would become the key to everything. When I handed the bottle to the doctor, his jaw tightened. We'll need to report this, he said. Report? Emily asked, voice shaking. Yes, he said. This isn't over the counter, and if this was given without consent, he trailed off. That night after Lily was stabilized and sleeping, Marlene came to sit with me in the waiting room. She took my hand. Ruth, she said, I need to tell you something. I looked at her. What? She swallowed. I've seen this before. My breath caught. Seen what? She leaned closer, lowering her voice. People experimenting, testing, using vulnerable families, elderly neighbors, kids. My skin prickled. For what? I asked. Marlene's eyes were grim. Control, she said, and sometimes profit. The room seemed to close in. What do you mean? I whispered. She shook her head. I don't know all the details yet, but I know this isn't an accident, and Ruth, I think your neighbor knew exactly what she was doing. I thought of Mrs. Donnelly's smile, the way her eyes had flicked toward her house, the way she'd asked for the bottle back. I felt something shift inside me. Fear, yes, but also something else. Resolve. Because whatever Mrs. Donnelly thought she was doing with my granddaughter, she had made one fatal mistake. She'd assumed I was just a tired old woman who wouldn't notice. She was wrong. I didn't sleep that night. I sat in the hard plastic chair beside Lily's hospital bed, listening to the rhythmic beep of the monitor, watching her chest rise and fall. Every time her brow furrowed or her fingers twitched, my heart slammed into my ribs like it was trying to escape. Emily slept curled on the narrow couch, exhaustion finally overtaking fear. I stayed awake because I didn't trust the silence. Because every time I closed my eyes, I saw Mrs. Donnelly's smile flattening into something colder. At 3:12 a.m., Lily stirred. Grandma, she whispered. I leaned forward instantly. I'm here, sweetheart. Her eyes fluttered open, glassy but focused. I don't like her, she said, my throat tight. Who, baby? The lady next door, she murmured. She watches. A chill ran through me. What do you mean? Lily swallowed. When I play outside, she stands at her window. Sometimes she writes things. I felt my scalp prickle. Writes things? Lily nodded faintly. On a yellow pad, and she told me not to tell you. She said it was our secret. Something hot and furious bloomed in my chest. What else did she say? I asked gently, fighting to keep my voice steady. She said the vitamins would help me be better, Lily whispered. Quieter. That my mom wouldn't be so tired if I was easier. I squeezed her hand, tears blurring my vision. You don't need to be easier. You're perfect the way you are. Lily's eyes slid closed again, the medication pulling her back under. But her words stayed with me, echoing, stacking, sharpening into something unmistakable. This wasn't careless kindness. This was grooming. The next morning, a social worker came by. Then a woman from hospital administration. Then finally, a uniformed police officer with a notebook and tired eyes. I told the story from the beginning, the fence, the vitamins, the smile. I watched his pen slow when I mentioned Lily's symptoms. You did the right thing bringing her in, he said. We'll follow up, 2 words that felt laughably small. By the time Lily was discharged that evening, I had already made a decision. I wasn't waiting. I went home alone. Emily stayed back with Lily for one more night of observation, at Marlene's insistence. I told her I needed clothes, paperwork, normalcy. That was partly true. What I really needed was to see Mrs. Donnelly's house when no one else was around. The sun was just starting to set when I pulled into our driveway. The neighborhood looked the same as it always had. Manicured lawns, pumpkins on porches, the faint smell of wood smoke in the air. Her curtains were open. I stood in my living room and watched her through the window like I was the one spying now. She moved methodically, turning lights on then off. She carried a box from her living room toward the back of the house, then returned empty-handed. Her posture was stiff, her movements precise. I waited until her lights went out. Then I crossed the lawn. My heart pounded so loudly I was sure it would give me away. I told myself I was just looking, just confirming. I wasn't breaking in. I wasn't doing anything illegal. I walked up to her front door and looked down. There, tucked under the mat, was an envelope, no name, just a thick manila packet. I stared at it for a long moment, then bent and picked it up. Inside were papers, printed forms, charts, notes written in tight, slanted handwriting. My name was on the first page, so was Lily's. I stumbled back to my house like I was drunk, locked the door behind me, and spread the contents out on my kitchen table. There were dates, times, observations. Subject appears anxious when separated from maternal figure. Subject responds positively to supplement regimen. Caregiver unaware of compound origin. My hands shook so badly I had to sit down. This wasn't casual. This wasn't accidental. This was a study. I took photos of every page, every note, every margin scribble. Then I put everything back exactly as I'd found it. I didn't sleep again. At 7:30 a.m., Marlene arrived with coffee and grim determination. I showed her the photos. She went very still. "Oh my God," she whispered. "What is it?" I asked. She zoomed in on one page. "These codes, they're not random. They look like trial identifiers." "Trial?" I repeated. "Clinical," she said, "or pseudo-clinical. Some people skirt regulations, especially with natural compounds." I felt sick. "You're saying she's testing things on children?" "I'm saying it looks like she's collecting data," Marlene said, "and she's not a doctor." We took everything to the police station together. This time they listened. An investigator named Collins sat across from us, jaw clenched as he flipped through the photos. "This goes beyond neighbor disputes," he said. "This is exploitation." "What happens now?" I asked. "We'll need a warrant," he said, "but you did good work." Good work. The phrase echoed strangely. By noon, Mrs. Donnelly's house was surrounded by unmarked cars. I watched from my window as officers knocked, then entered. Boxes were carried out, a computer tower, file folders, a locked cabinet. She was escorted out an hour later, hands cuffed behind her back. She didn't look at me, not once. Emily cried when I told her, not with relief, with delayed terror. "What if we hadn't listened to Lily?" she whispered. I didn't answer. There was no version of that thought that didn't end badly. The investigation moved quickly after that, faster than I expected. Mrs. Donnelly's real name was Donnelly. She moved 3 times in 10 years, always near schools, always into quiet neighborhoods with grandparents raising grandchildren. She wasn't licensed. She wasn't affiliated with any legitimate research institution. She sold her data. To whom they wouldn't say yet. Lily improved steadily once the compound cleared her system. The panic attacks stopped. Her appetite returned. She laughed again, the sound cautious at first, then freer. But she didn't want to play outside, not alone. So I sat with her on the porch every afternoon, my knitting untouched in my lap, my eyes scanning the street. One evening, a week after the arrest, my phone rang. Unknown number, I answered. "Ruth," a woman said, calm, professional. "This is Denise Harper from Child Protective Services." My stomach tight. "Yes, we need to speak with you regarding Lily." Fear flared instantly. "Is she okay?" "She's fine," Denise said. "This is procedural. Given the circumstances, we're reviewing all adults involved." "All adults?" I echoed. "Yes," she said, "including you." The room seemed to tilt again. "I was deceived," I said quickly. "I didn't know." "We understand," Denise said, "but we still need to assess." They came the next day. Denise was younger than I expected, with kind eyes and a tablet she tapped constantly. She asked about routines, about decision-making, about boundaries. Answered everything honestly. I didn't defend myself. I didn't minimize my mistake. "I should have checked," I said. "I should have asked more questions. I won't make that mistake again." Denise watched me carefully, then she nodded. "Children need adults who can admit fault," she said. "That matters." After she left, Emily hugged me hard. "I'm sorry," she said. "I never should have let this fall on you." I shook my head. "We're a team, that's what matters." For a while, it felt like things might settle. The letters started arriving. No return address, typed short. "You ruined years of work. People like you shouldn't meddle." Accidents happen. The police took them seriously. Patrols increased. Cameras were installed, but the fear was already inside me now, coiled and watchful. One night, as I was locking up, I noticed something taped to the inside of our mailbox. A yellow sticky note in tight, slanted handwriting. "Observation incomplete." My breath left me in a rush. She was still watching. Or someone else was. That was the moment I stopped reacting and started planning. Because if someone thought they could experiment on my family and walk away unseen, unchallenged, unexposed, they were about to learn exactly how wrong they were. I didn't tell Emily about the note right away. Not because I wanted to protect her, though part of me did, but because I needed time to understand what I was feeling. Fear was there, yes, crawling under my skin, but beneath it was something steadier. Anger sharpened by clarity. The kind of anger that doesn't explode. The kind that plans. I peeled the sticky note off the mailbox and slid it into a plastic bag, the way the officer had shown me. Evidence. Everything was evidence now. That night after Lily fell asleep clutching her stuffed rabbit, I sat at the kitchen table and spread out a notebook. A real one, paper, ink, things that couldn't be hacked or erased. I wrote dates, times, names. Mrs. Donnelly, no, whatever her real name was, had studied us. That meant there were patterns, habits, predictable blind spots. I started with myself. I'm an early riser. Coffee at 6, porch at 4, lights out by 10. I wrote it all down, then forced myself to change it the next day. Coffee at 7, porch at 3, lights on late, curtains closed where they used to be open. If someone was watching, I wanted them uncert. Emily noticed the changes immediately. Mom, you okay? She asked one morning as I rearranged the living room furniture for the third time that week. I'm fine, I said. Just thinking? She studied me. You're thinking a lot lately. I should have been thinking before, I said quietly. She didn't push. Emily had learned the hard way that when I got like this, focused, deliberate, it meant something inside me had locked into place. The police traced the letters to a print shop 2 towns over. Cash payment. No cameras. The sticky note, no prints. She may have help, Officer Collins said when he came by to update us, or she may just be careful. Careful doesn't mean invisible, I said. He looked at me for a long moment. No, it doesn't. Marlene helped me more than anyone during that time. She showed me how to document without spiraling, how to separate vigilance from paranoia. She wanted control, Marlene said one afternoon as we walked Lily home from school together. People like that hate losing the narrative. Then I'll take it from her, I said. Marlene squeezed my arm. Just don't lose yourself in the process. I promised her I wouldn't. I didn't tell her I already knew that promise might be a lie. 2 weeks after the arrest, the news broke. A short segment, no names, an unlicensed individual accused of administering experimental supplements to minors. Neighbors whispered. Parents clutched their kids closer. People avoided our house like fear might be contagious. Then the emails started, anonymous. Cryptid, short, you don't understand what you interfered with. Data has value. Curiosity killed more than cats. The police traced what they could. Most of it bounced through servers overseas, dead ends. Emily wanted to move. We can't stay here, she said one night, pacing the living room. What if they come back? What if Lily? I stood up and took her hands. Running won't make us safer. It'll tell them we're scared. I am scared, she said, tears spilling over. I almost lost my daughter. So did I said, but we're still here. Lily watched us from the hallway, eyes too old for her face. I don't want to move, she said softly. I like my room. Emily broke then, dropping to her knees and hugging her tight. That settled it. We stayed. The next development came from an unexpected place. A woman named Karen showed up at my door one afternoon, clutching a folder to her chest. Early 40s, tired eyes, nervous energy. I think you were my neighbor, she said. My heart skipped. When? 3 years ago, she said. Different name, same face? I let her in. Karen's story unfolded slowly, haltingly. A son with behavioral issues. A friendly woman next door, supplements, improvement, then collapse. I thought it was my fault, Karen whispered. I thought I'd poisoned him. Her son was alive, older now, still dealing with anxiety, still dealing with guilt. I saw the news, she said, and I knew. We sat at my table, 2 women connected by the same deception, the same quiet violation. Karen handed me the folder. Inside were medical records, emails, notes, patterns. I called Officer Collins immediately. This time the case cracked open. More families came forward, different towns, same methods, same handwriting. The scope was bigger than anyone realized, and still the messages continued. Until one night they stopped. No emails, no letters, no notes. The silence was worse. Weeks passed. Then months, the trial date was set. Mrs. Donnelly, her real name finally revealed in court documents, sat at the defense table, hair pulled back, expression serene. She never looked at us. Experts testified, doctors, psychologists, parents. I took the stand on the 3rd day. I told the truth about my mistake, about my guilt, about the moment my granddaughter asked me to stop. When the prosecutor asked why I hadn't questioned the vitamins more, I didn't flinch. Because I trusted someone who knew exactly how to appear trustworthy, I said, and because I was tired, and because I loved my family enough to believe help could be simple. The jury watched me closely. When it was over, Emily hugged me so hard I couldn't breathe. The verdict came back guilty on all counts. The sentence was long, but justice is never as clean as people want it to be. 6 months later, a package arrived. No return address. Inside was a single page. Phase 1 terminated. Phase 2 adapts. I stared at it for a long time, then I smiled, because they still thought I was reacting. They still thought I was behind. They were wrong. I picked up my notebook and turned to a fresh page. If they wanted to watch, I would give them something worth seeing. I didn't show the page to Emily. Some truths are burdens, and this one was mine to carry for now. I slipped the paper into my notebook, right between my grocery lists and the timeline I'd built piece by piece. It fit there disturbingly well, like it belonged. Phase 2 adapts. That sentence told me everything I needed to know. Whoever was still out there hadn't stopped. They'd adjusted, which meant they were watching reactions, not just outcomes. Fine, I could work with that. The first thing I did was become boring. Painfully, aggressively boring. No more police calls, no more frantic changes to routine. I smiled at neighbors. I planted mums. I volunteered to help with the school book fair. Let the cameras gather dust while I went back to my porch knitting at 4 on the dot. If someone was monitoring, I wanted them relaxed. Underneath that calm, though, I was building something else. Karen became my quiet ally. We didn't meet often and never on a schedule. Coffee shops across town, libraries, once a church basement during a food drive, always places with noise and movement. She kept more than I had, old emails, a thumb drive she'd never opened because she'd been too afraid. We opened it together, spreadsheets, names reduced to initials, ages, reactions, dosages, profit margins. My hands shook as I scrolled. This wasn't curiosity, I said. This was a business. Karen nodded, jaw tight, and businesses have partners. The police had their investigation. The courts had their verdicts. What they didn't have, what they couldn't prioritize, was prevention. That's where I stepped in. I started small. Anonymous tips to journalists who'd covered medical fraud. Redacted documents, connections drawn carefully without exaggeration. A podcast picked it up first, then a long-form article. Then a congressional aide reached out to one of the reporters. The net widened, and then predictably the pressure came back to me. Not threats this time, offers. The email arrived late at night, rooted through layers of encryption that screamed intention. You've demonstrated discernment. We prefer collaboration to conflict. I laughed out loud when I read it. Collaboration. I didn't respond. The next day, Lily came home from school smiling, clutching a permission slip for a field trip. Can you come? She asked. They need chaperones. I knelt in front of her. Of course I can. Her smile widened, unburdened, free. That was the moment I understood the true cost of all this. Not the fear, not the anger, the vigilance. I refused to let them steal that from her. The second email was more explicit. We can compensate you for your silence. I forwarded it to a journalist, to Officer Collins, to the aide. The third email never came. Instead, a subpoena did. I testified again, this time not as a victim, but as a witness to a network. Names I didn't know filled the courtroom. Suits, lawyers, carefully blank expressions. They underestimated me. They thought my power ended with my story. They were wrong. When it was over, when the investigations widened and the indictments followed, when the headlines finally named the scale of it, I went home and made Lily her favorite dinner. Mac and cheese, extra breadcrumbs. We ate together, the three of us, the house warm and ordinary and safe. Later that night, as I tucked her in, Lily looked up at me. Grandma, she said. Yes, sweetheart? You didn't listen at first, she said carefully. But then you did, I swallowed. I'm sorry it took me time. She nodded, accepting it in that way only children can. It's okay, you stopped them. I kissed her forehead. I'll always stop them. When the house was quiet, I opened my notebook one last time. I tore out the page with the message. I fed it into the shredder. Some battles don't end with victory. They end with vigilance handed down, quietly, fiercely, from one generation to the next. And anyone who thinks a grandmother won't burn a system to the ground to protect her family has never met one like me. The last time I saw her was a year later. I hadn't planned on it. I'd driven downtown for a hearing that had nothing to do with us directly anymore. Policy changes, oversight committees, words that sounded clean and distant compared to what they were built on. I sat in the back row, hands folded, listening to people argue about safeguards like they were abstract ideas instead of lifelines. When the doors at the side of the room opened, I felt it before I saw her. You don't forget that kind of presence. Some people carry stillness like a weapon. She walked in flanked by two guards, hair shorter now, grayer. Prison neutralized the sharp edges of her wardrobe, but not her posture. She held herself the same way she always had, chin lifted, eyes forward, as if the world were still something to be evaluated. She didn't look at me. That was deliberate. I watched her sit, watched her hands rest calmly on the table, watched the faint tightening at the corner of her mouth when the panel chair announced a new regulatory standard for community-based supplement distribution. I felt no triumph. That surprised me. What I felt instead was distance. Like she belonged to a chapter already closed, filed away, labeled, and shelved. When the hearing ended, I waited for the room to clear before standing. I moved slowly, deliberately, not hiding, not rushing. As I passed her table, she spoke. You look well, she said quietly. I stopped. So many things rose to the surface, anger, memory, the image of my granddaughter shaking in a hospital bed, but none of them controlled me anymore. I am, I said. My family is safe. She nodded once. That's fortunate. I turned to face her then, for the first time since that morning at my door when she'd asked for the bottle back. You miscalculated, I said, her eyes flicked up, sharp despite everything. Did I? Yes, I said calmly. You thought kindness was weakness. You thought age meant ignorance. You thought grandparents were placeholders until something better came along. Her mouth tightened almost imperceptibly. You were wrong, I continued. We are the ones who notice when things change. We are the ones who remember patterns. And we are the ones with nothing left to lose when our children are threatened. For the first time, something like unease crossed her face. I leaned closer, lowering my voice, not threatening, not dramatic, just true. You didn't lose because of me, I said. You lost because you chose the wrong family. I stepped away before she could respond. That was the end of it, at least the end of her part in my life. The real ending, the one that mattered, was quieter. It came in the form of Lily running into the house one afternoon, backpack bouncing, hair pulled back in a crooked ponytail. "Grandma," she called, "I got picked." "For what?" I asked, smiling. "The science fair mentorship program," she said breathlessly. "They pair us with real scientists. Mom said you helped make that program happen." I blinked. "I did," she nodded vigorously. "They said it started after new safety laws about ethics." I laughed softly. Well, imagine that. Later that night, after homework and dishes and the familiar rhythm of our life settling around us, Emily sat beside me on the couch. "You know," she said, "for a long time I blamed myself, and you, and everyone, but now I think about what Lily learned." I raised an eyebrow. "Which is?" "That adults can be wrong," Emily said, "and still be brave enough to fix it." I reached for her hand. "That might be the most important lesson there is. Life didn't become perfect after that." Lily still had bad days. I still checked labels twice. Emily still woke up some nights panicked by what ifs. But fear no longer ran the house. Trust did, careful, informed, hard-earned trust. I kept the notebook for a while longer, then finally let it go. Burned the pages in our fire pit one evening as Lily roasted marshmallows beside me, unaware of what was turning to ash. Some things are meant to be remembered. Others are meant to be released. Now, when neighbors offer advice, remedies, shortcuts, I smile, I listen, and I verify. And when Lily asks questions, I answer them. All of them, because silence is where harm grows, and love, real love, is loud, vigilant, and unapologetic. That's the truth I live with now.